This is probably the creepiest and most unexplainable thing that has ever happened to me. A few years ago, I worked the overnight shift as a security guard at my local port. It was a massive industrial site that stretched for nearly 2 miles, filled with warehouses, loading docks, shipping containers, and maintenance buildings. During the day, it was packed with workers and heavy machinery. But after midnight, it became eerily quiet. Usually, the only employee on site besides security was the safety official. There were 3 guards assigned to the night shift. Although the property had several guard posts, we normally stayed together at the front gate because there was almost no activity overnight. Every few hours, we'd split up briefly to perform patrols around the property before returning to the entrance. The veteran guards loved telling stories about the place. According to them, the port was haunted because several workers had died there over the years in tragic accidents. Forklift crashes, equipment failures, and other freak incidents had supposedly claimed multiple lives. I'm a religious person, so I believe angels and demons exist, but I never took the ghost story seriously. I figured the older guards were just trying to scare the new hires. For the first few weeks, nothing unusual happened. During patrols, I'd hear an occasional unexplained creak or notice tools that seemed to have been moved, but I blamed it on the old buildings or workers forgetting where they left things. Everything had a logical explanation, or so I thought. One of the buildings on site was an old employee gym. Since some construction crews occasionally stayed at the port for several days, the company had built a small fitness center for them. Inside were weight machines, a sauna, and an indoor racquetball court with smooth white walls and a thick glass door. My coworker Mike and I would often stop there during our patrols. We'd play a few games of racquetball to pass the time before heading back to the front gate. One night, around 2:30 a.m., we decided to skip racquetball and lift weights instead. The building was unnaturally silent. The air conditioning had been shut off for the night, and the only sound came from the faint electrical hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. It was so quiet you could hear your own breathing echo through the empty gym. About 20 minutes into our workout, we heard a loud thump. It sounded like something had slammed into a wall. We both stopped for a second, looked at each other, then shrugged it off. Old buildings make strange noises all the time. A few minutes later, another thump echoed through the gym. This time it was louder. Our first thought was that our lieutenant had entered the building, so Mike radioed him. "Where are you?" His response came back immediately. "Front gate." That ruled him out completely. We stood there trying to think of a reasonable explanation. Maybe the air conditioner had kicked on somehow, but it was definitely off. Besides, we'd spent plenty of nights in that gym before and had never heard noises like this. Then the sounds became more frequent. Thump, thump, thump. Each impact echoed off the walls, almost rhythmically, as if someone were hitting something against the racquetball court wall. Neither of us said a word. We just stared toward the hallway leading to the court. Finally, Mike whispered, "Let's go check." Neither of us wanted to, but curiosity got the better of us. We slowly walked toward the glass door. Every step felt heavier than the last. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Mike raised his flashlight and aimed it through the glass. The court was empty, no people, no movement. Then, right in front of our eyes, a racquetball slowly rolled across the floor by itself. It wasn't bouncing, it wasn't spinning wildly. It simply rolled across the court as though someone had gently hit it. At that exact moment, every hair on my body stood up. The realization hit us instantly. Those loud thumps we'd been hearing weren't random noises. They sounded exactly like someone was playing racquetball inside an empty court. I felt tears welling up from pure fear. Neither of us could process what we were seeing. We didn't speak. We didn't investigate further. We turned around and ran. We sprinted through the gym and all the way back to the front gate as fast as we could. By the time we reached the office, we were out of breath and visibly shaken. Our lieutenant looked at us with a confused expression and asked what had happened. When we explained everything we'd seen, his face changed immediately. Instead of laughing, he became completely serious. He quietly said, "That's why guards quit so often. Whatever is here, it's been here for a long time, and you're not the first people to experience something like that." He later showed us security footage of dark, shadow-like figures moving through empty hallways and office areas late at night. There were also clips of lights switching on and off with nobody nearby. To this day, I still can't explain what Mike and I witnessed that night. Some people believe it was a ghost. Others think it was something far darker. I honestly don't know what it was, but I do know one thing: I didn't stay at that job much longer after that experience. Even now, years later, I still get chills every time I think about that empty racquetball court. My name is Daniel. I've worked the graveyard shift at a fried chicken place off Route 9 for a little over a year. It's nothing special, but the pay covers my bills, and I've always been more of a night person, so the 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. window never bothered me the way it does most people. It started about 5 weeks ago. I was running the drive-thru alone. We're always short-staffed after midnight when a car rolled up to the speaker. A man's voice, flat and forgettable, ordered a family bucket meal with extra biscuits and a sweet tea. Nothing unusual. The only strange part came at the payment window. He cracked it just enough to slide his card through. Windows tinted black. Couldn't see a thing inside. He paid, took his receipt, and then just drove off, didn't pull up to the second window for the food at all. I stood there holding his order for a few minutes, waiting. He never came back. Eventually, I shrugged it off, boxed up the food, and ate it on my break. People do strange things. I didn't dwell on it. About a week later, same thing happened. Same order, same routine, same vanishing act. I remember thinking it was oddly familiar, but I still couldn't connect it to anything. The third time I finally understood. It was the same person. By then I figured whatever the food was paid for, and I wasn't about to complain about free chicken. This kept up for weeks, every 4 or 5 days, always deep in the night. I almost started looking forward to it like clockwork. Then one night around 2 a.m., I heard that same voice come through the speaker. He placed the usual order, but this time he added something new, something that made my stomach drop. He said, "Enjoy the biscuits, Mr. Reyes." My last name isn't on my badge. It's not posted anywhere. There was no way he should have known it. I froze, then started asking who it was, over and over. He never answered. I heard the engine gun and he was gone. That night when I got home, there was a note taped to my door. "I know what you did, 3 days." I had no idea what he meant. I don't have enemies. I'm a 25-year-old guy who works fast food and plays video games in his off hours. Nothing about my life invites this kind of attention. Nothing happened for those 3 days. I almost convinced myself it was over. Then he showed up again at the drive-thru. No food order this time, just an address on the edge of town and a demand. $8,000 within 48 hours. I didn't have that kind of money. I still don't. I told myself it had to be some kind of prank or scam and tried to ignore it. 3 nights of silence followed. I thought maybe it had blown over. Then, while winding down after a shift, my front window shattered. I hit the floor before I even understood what had happened. By the time I looked outside, whoever did it was gone. I called the police that time, gave them everything: the note, the address, the pattern of orders. They said they'd increase patrols but couldn't do much without footage of my porch. That was 4 days ago. I've called out of work every night since, though I know that won't matter if he knows where I live. I can't afford to quit, and I can't afford to move. I keep thinking about asking the store to pull the card number from those orders, maybe that leads somewhere. Beyond that, I don't know what else to do. I still have no idea why I was ever targeted in the first place. I just hope it doesn't get worse from here. The detour: I graduated 8 months ago with a communications degree that has landed me exactly 0 job offers. So now I drive for Uber and Uber Eats out of my parents' house in Ohio, mostly Friday and Saturday nights, 9 p.m. to 3 a.m., chasing surge pricing off drunk college kids stumbling out of downtown bars. It's not a career. It's a way to feel useful while I figure out what comes next. This happened 3 weeks ago. It was almost 1:30 a.m., and I was one ride from calling it a night when a request pinged in. Pick up downtown, drop off way out past the suburbs. Practically farm country. I almost declined. The fare, though, was absurd, so I accepted. My passenger was a young woman, quiet, unremarkable. 40 minutes later, I dropped her at a dark farmhouse and turned back toward the highway, alone now, with 40 more minutes of empty road ahead of me. 10 minutes in, my headlights caught a car stopped dead in the middle of the road, hazards blinking. 2 figures stood in front of it, waving their arms. Every instinct told me to keep driving. But I've never been able to just leave someone stranded. So I slowed down, stopped about 20 feet back, and cracked my window an inch. Enough to hear them. Not enough for a hand to reach through. A couple. Middle-aged. That should have put me at ease. It didn't. Not once the woman started talking. Her voice had that pitch of someone reciting something she'd said before. She told me the bridge up ahead had collapsed that afternoon, that they'd nearly driven straight into the river themselves. Her husband pointed into the dark and said there was a turnoff about a half-mile up, a dirt road through the trees. They would loop me back to the highway and save me from the wreckage. I thanked them. I pulled away. And something in my gut screamed at me not to listen. I kept driving straight. A half-mile later, there it was. A narrow dirt track swallowed by trees, barely wide enough for a single car. I didn't turn. A few minutes after that, I reached a bridge. It was fine, not a crack in it. I drove across without slowing and made it home before dawn, but I didn't sleep. I kept picturing myself turning down that dirt road instead, alone at 2 a.m, with nobody knowing where I'd gone. 4 days later, curiosity beat out common sense, and I drove back out there in broad daylight, telling myself that would make it less insane. The couple was gone, obviously, but at the mouth of that dirt path nailed to a tree was a sign that hadn't been there before. Dead end. Fresh wood, fresh nails. I would have seen it that night if it had existed. Someone had put it up since. I sat in the car staring at that path for a long minute. In daylight, it just looked like an ordinary dirt road running into the woods. Nothing sinister about it at all. I told myself I was being ridiculous, parked and got out to take a closer look on foot since I didn't want to risk my car in the ruts. The second my boots hit the gravel, the feeling changed. Something about standing out there in the open with nothing between me and those trees made every hair on my arm stand up. I hadn't even reached the tree line before I turned around and started walking back to my car. That's when I heard it. A scream, a woman's scream, raw and close, tearing out of the woods from somewhere down that path. I don't remember the drive from the car door to the driver's seat. I don't remember pulling onto the road. I just remember my hands shaking on the wheel a mile later and the woods shrinking in my mirror. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't gone back. I know I should let it go. I know that. But I keep thinking about asking a friend to come with me, just once with the camera running. For now, all I have is the sign, the scream, and 2 strangers who knew exactly what road they wanted me to take. I still haven't fully told this story to anyone outside the cops and a few close family members. Even now, it's hard to get through. A few years ago, right out of high school, I took a gap year and picked up my first real job at a 24-hour gym. It ran on keycard access. So most nights it was just me or maybe one other guy on staff, while people badged themselves in whenever they felt like it. Everything, check-ins, machine usage, all of it, got logged automatically. My job was basically to sit in the office, watch the cameras, do a walkthrough here and there, wipe down some equipment, shoot the breeze with the regulars. Not the nicest neighborhood, but it was a small crowd, the kind of place where everybody sort of knew everybody. That night I had the long one, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., usually dead as a doornail. Not this time. It was about 2 a.m. I'd already finished my rounds in the paperwork, so I sat down to keep half an eye on the monitors. Slow night, a couple of regulars drifting through like usual. I'd been there a few months, so I knew basically every face that walked in, except this one guy on a treadmill in the back corner. New faces weren't a big deal. His pace was. I pulled up his machine on the system just to see the numbers, 9 miles an hour. That's fast. 10 minutes go by, 15. He's not slowing down even a little. So I zoom in on the camera, and something about this guy is just off. Ragged clothes, hair hanging in his face, and this expression that never moves, just staring dead ahead. Then I clock his feet. He's barefoot, sprinting barefoot. At this point, it's just me and him in the whole building, and I'm officially creeped out. I remembered we had a shoes policy, so I figured I'd use that as my excuse to go talk to him. Took some nerve, but I got up and headed out toward the floor. His treadmill was almost right outside the staff hallway, and the second I came around that corner, I froze. The belt was covered in blood. His feet were tearing open with every step, blood snapping off with each footfall and pooling behind the machine. His face hadn't moved an inch. Same blank stare, mouth hanging open like a scream that never came out. He looked wrecked, like he was on every drug that exists. My gut told me this guy was dangerous. I yelled at him anyway. Told him to stop. Nothing. Didn't even glance my way. I yelled again, something like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And that's when he answered, in this flat gravel voice that had no business coming out of someone sprinting full speed with zero signs of tiring. "Are you there?" That was it. I asked him to stop. He said it again and again, just, "Are you there?" Over and over while the blood kept spreading. I'd had enough. I went to go call 911. On my way back to the office, I glanced at the monitor one more time. He was staring straight into the camera, sprinting, bleeding everywhere, mouth wide open, watching me. I looked away, and that's when I heard him, screaming from right outside the office door. Not words, just this raw, awful sound. I look back at the screen in time to see him hop off the treadmill, didn't even bother turning it off, and take off out of frame. I started flipping through every camera trying to find him. Nothing, until I got to the one covering the staff hallway. There he was, standing about 6 feet from the office door. I have no clue how he got back there without a key card, and honestly, I didn't stop to think about it. I locked the door. 5 seconds later, the knob started rattling. I called 911, gave them the address, and the whole time he's screaming and yanking at that door. Dispatch said cops were 5 minutes out. I sat in the corner of the office thinking, if that door gives, I'm not walking out of here. That screaming kept up for almost 3 full minutes. Deep, wrong, barely human at all. Then, nothing. It just stopped. The door went still. I checked the cameras. Gone. Not one single feed had him anywhere in the building. When police finally showed up, I made them clear the entire place before I'd even step out of that office. They didn't find a thing. No trace of him. I gave my statement, drove home in dead silence, and put in my 2 weeks the next morning. Honestly, I never set foot back in that gym again. I still don't know who he was, what he wanted, or where he disappeared to. Mostly, I just think about what would have happened if that door hadn't locked in time.